We've finally finished most of the structure for this application now. So we have the backend database, we have a decent amount of UI that's all bound correctly, and we finally finished this print actions page. So it's time to move on to the custom properties next. It shouldn't be too hard now. We should be able to work through these other tabs really quickly because all the foundations are there. I just want to quickly wrap up the crash handling we did in the last video. There's a few little tweaks I want to do, and then we'll jump into making this custom properties UI. So we've handled the crash exceptions now, and we've prevented any unexpected crashes. We'll come back to handling things that you would expect to fail and deal with them a different way, but for now we have the crash handling that will capture anything that's unexpected. One thing I noticed here though, this is a loop that we want to make sure doesn't loop indefinitely. It's a pretty tight loop that we need to make sure we don't recall this over and over. Now let's think about just this at the minute. We have the crash service set crash data. If this fails, so say we can't write to this file, the hard drive's full, we don't have permission, something else crashes, we do nothing but we don't write anything. So what's going to happen in that instance is we won't write a crash log, the crash log is null, and we restart. If we restart, crash, and then fail to write again, it's going to be an infinite loop. So we need to protect this service as well from doing something. That'll be fairly simple. We'll just say if this succeeds, basically. So we need to wrap this in an if and move all this inside. And then we only ever check if we manage to write a successful crash log, then we'll do this. And it means then that we're going to have some crash data, because that means the next time we pull, we know at least the crash log is working. If we go into here, we need to then just change this to a Boolean and do similar to the other function and return if this actually manages to write something successful here. Every other case, we can do return false. And that should be all we need to prevent that potential infinite loop. And then one other glitch I noticed after we finished the last video is in this delete print settings. When we delete here, we're not saving anything. So now we have the back end, we need to make sure we're saving. So we check if we've got the counter. Basically, when we delete a print settings, we're updating the currently active print item and setting its ID to the first one if we've deleted the one that this had. And this is not really a good catch here. So let's just move that out and put the logic up to here instead. So if selected print item isn't equal to null, then we can go inside. And the count is above 0. And then all we need to do is make sure after we've changed the settings that we save here. So we just need to do await save print item async. And that will call in, commit everything we need, and then update the save state for us. So that's all we need to do to fix that delete. And we need to now actually prevent these buttons from showing, because at the minute if we edit them, then say save, it's going to crash. And this is an expected behavior. We don't expect to be able to edit it, so we shouldn't let that one bubble up. That's an easy fix. We'll go to the print tab, and then what we need to do is look for this. So new print settings, and we'll be in this list box here. And then here are the two buttons. So we need to protect against both of these. We've already got one that we only show when the item's selected, so we want to wrap this again in a panel. It's just the simplest way of doing this, instead of doing anything more complex with a value converter to have a kind of double logic on whether the button's visible. We'll just wrap it in a panel, so either the panel hides or the button hides, and we have a two-step logic. We want to move the grid column now to the panel instead of the button, and we just now need another one for is visible. And this one can be a binding to the can delete, are we on? Or are we on the edit button? This is the edit one. So this wants to be can edit. And that means we'll only show this button when we can edit. We'll copy and paste the panel down to this button for the delete. And the same in here, we'll change that to 4, delete that, fix all these margins, and then change this one to can delete. And now you can see the hidden, so we can't delete the default, and we can't edit the default. Now we might want to do something where even though we can't edit this, we need to see this values. But for now, it literally means everything's default. So you're not seeing anything. You're just going to see everything saying the word default. So I don't think we need that. If we make a new one and just say test, OneNote, letter, scale to fit, and save, you can see now we've got that. Come in and out, everything's saved. And we can't delete the default, but we can edit and delete these. And this one will edit fine without crashing. And you can see everything's all set up. So that's now all good. And I think we can move on to this custom properties. For that, if we open up the existing batch process, so if I go to add job, custom properties, now in here, the way I designed this, obviously many, many years ago now, when I'm looking at it at the minute, I seem to have a kind of doubling up of logic here. So we have a custom properties with a list of properties, but then inside this property, we have another list of properties. And inside that, we have a group. It's very complicated for no real reason. And I think I anticipated back then that maybe you're having a lot of rules and you don't want to have to retype them. So you can reuse them inside of custom properties. But I think that just makes this UI look very messy and complicated and way too many layers deep. So we're going to remove all of this list. We're going to remove this group. And we're just going to have this UI here directly linked to a custom property. So what that means is we're going to have, say, in this print actions here, we're going to have a list. So this is going to stay the same. We'll have a custom properties list. So our properties with here. Job name and description we'll keep. We'll have this name and description and drop the group. So that's all identical. And then underneath that, this is then all going to be removed. And what we'll have is the rule, whether you're going to add, delete, update, copy, or clear all. And that changes what's visible. But all we'll do is make sure every field is available in the data models. And we just display based on what we select. I'll either do this as a radio or we'll do it as a drop down. We'll see when we add it if this UI having the radios going down here looks correct, or if not, we'll do a drop down. This bit again here, this kind of 3 text boxes and drop down is separate to what's underneath here. So this is kind of a do yes or no and include or exclude. Similar to the blacklist and whitelist in a sense, it's like a yes or no, but we'll also have a don't care instead of leaving fields blank. So we'll probably move these radio boxes and these 4 boxes to underneath here. And then on the right side, we can have the values based on what we need to fill in and all these check boxes. So that's the way of thinking at the minute. So let's just try and start making this. In the actions page view, this is where we have the tabs. And at the minute you can see we don't have anything, we just put content inside. So we want to put content in the custom properties, and this wants to be actions tab, custom properties view. We will copy and paste this, actions tab, custom properties view. And now let's make sure we have renamed everything where we see it. So we have the actions tab, custom properties view there. The parent view model is the same. The data context is going to be an actions page view model again. It's the parent one, remember, in the tabs. And then now behind in the code, let's make sure we update this. We'll call this custom properties. And then in the description, we'll say updating, deleting, and editing of custom properties with advanced logic, something like that. We have a new print action, so this is going to be a new custom property, or we could call this a new job, to be honest, and then it can be the same across all of them. So we'll probably say new job, but then again, new custom property job is going to be a bit long, I think. Oh no, that fits in fine. And now before we can really start editing all the bindings and lists and things, we need to make the view model in the background. So for example, print list, we need to now make one for custom properties list. So we need to copy this actions tab print view model and we'll call it actions tab custom properties view model. And then in here, we can again reuse what we can. So we'll have an ID, just the same. We'll have a job name and a description the same. And then this is where we want our custom things now. The rule is going to be a set of enums effectively, or we could keep it more flexible and have it as a string, but we'll do an enum, I think, for that. So let's just delete what we don't want, which is basically almost everything. We'll keep his new item because that's going to have the same kind of logic. The has changed will, I think, be the same logic again. So we might want to bury this, to be honest, in a view model base. But I think considering all the logic's already in the base and we're just adding this new item to the logic, we'll just copy and paste it for now. We need the to data model, and then now we'll need an actual data model as well, which we won't do until we've actually got the data model created. So we'll just leave it to do in here. And now with the blanks in, what we want to add is the rule. And that actually brings me to another point here I thought about as well, is I don't think we really want to have this data folder. When I started splitting this out and then realized we've got data models, data, and crash, I don't think data really has a place. Data models, yes, that's the database settings specifically, which you could store in there. But I think everything else should be specific to what it's doing. So in this case, the crash data is for the crash. Same with services. Even though we have a service, I don't think we want probably just all the services in one place maybe. Because I'd probably put the crash service in a crash folder, the database service in with maybe data, and keep the data and data models all together. The dialog service would probably just go in a dialog folder, and you get the idea. But for now, we'll just leave them there, but that's just a thought I've got at the minute about restructuring these folders. They kind of split out. This data folder makes no sense. This is really application, so let's just rename this at least to application. Or you probably don't want to call it application because that's almost probably going to be a keyword somewhere. So we'll do application data maybe. Well, let's just try application. We'll soon find out if we get issues with that. And then this will be application. In the namespace for all of them. So slight sidetrack here, but I kind of want to do some cleaning up. I think as well, let's get rid of this services folder. Let's just do what we said. Let's move the crash data over to crash. And then it also makes the namespaces a bit more correct. Database service, I think this is where really the database service is part of, yeah, the application doesn't even make sense actually. Application page name does, but then this is the database. So let's make another folder and call this data store. Data storage. Application can move into there. Actions page name. That's, I guess, part of the application still. Database service now goes into database storage. Update the namespaces in here to data storage. That's better. Dialog service is now really a dialog specific thing we don't have a folder for. So let's make a folder for that. Dialog. This wants to then be dialog. And then print service. I can rename the services now to print or printer. And then same with factories now. Factories don't need to be in a factories folder. They can be in the specific one. This can go in data storage. And the page factory can go in application. Then we can delete the factories folder. Copy the namespace over. And that's a bit more, I think, logical now. Data storage is all about the database stuff. Crash is about crash. Application is the application. And then the only thing left now, data models are really part of the data storage. So we can either dump them all in there, or what we can do is put the entire folder in to keep them separated like this. And then we'll have to update the namespaces inside of here to data storage, data models, or we could just put them in data storage, but you typically put them in the folder name structure so it's logical. There's those. Now let's see if we can build. I'm sure we're going to have a load of namespaces that are missing now that we've got to double click, cut those namespaces out, and you can see straight away the application we can't call application for that reason. So let's now rename this to, what can we call this? We'll call it main app. And then we'll rename, this to main app. Cut that out, compile again. And the same thing, cut any namespaces that don't exist, control dot any that are missing. And that now builds. So that was quite a lot of deleting namespaces and control dotting, but it wasn't hard. Let's just check if anything's broke since doing that, because that's quite a big change now. So the app still spins up, which is good. The actions still load. We can create a new item. We can delete. Yeah, everything seems good. Custom properties now, you can see is basically a clone of this at the minute. So now we can get on with creating that data model that we wanted. So we've created this. Now we need to make the enum for this add, delete, update, copy, and clean all. So now we'll make a folder called custom properties. And that has a logical place in here. So we can say custom property. And this is a rule type, I guess. This will be an enum. And with enums, I always like to start them with unknown in case you want to ever make it nullable. And then we have add, delete, update, copy, clear. Add, delete, and you can leave the numbers out if you want like this, and they'll continue in sequence. Or you could specify them specifically, so you could say 1, 4, things like that. So I'll just leave them as default, specifying the first one, and then we know, or to be honest, let's just be explicit. And then if we ever change or move things around in future, they're not going to change the numbers in the database. Copy, clear. That's the enum we need. So now we want to consume that in here. So we'll add another one here. We'll just copy and paste this. Call this rule type. Custom property rule type. So we have this now. We've got the name and description. We're dropping the group. Let's move on to adding all these static fields first, and then we'll go to these dynamic ones that are changing here. So the next one is, we want to perform this action, but only if, and in this case, the below statements are true or false, and then we leave one saying, or leave if blank. So instead of just leave if blank, we'll have a rule here that basically states to ignore or have true or false logic. And to be honest, the whole point of remaking this application is I want to make it more powerful. And instead of just having this limited UI where we say, if the following is true, the name is from a configuration file of a value, I want to have almost a parsable string. So the user could type, if custom property isn't equal to something, or, and then do something else, and make kind of a pseudo language that they can type in. So in fact, instead of having all 4 of these, I'm just going to have a single field, and it's just going to be called, I think we'll call it filter logic. So in here, we'll have another one of these, and this time it will just be a string, and we'll call this filter logic. And that's going to take care of all of these 4 boxes for us. These all still want to come into effect, so we need a Boolean for all of these. So we copy and paste this, make a Boolean, and we'll copy this a load of times, and now fill out each of these with these names. And that's all of the logic in there. I've changed this name configurations to a string, because in the UI, we have a bit of a contradiction here again. We can either set all configurations, or we could set just named ones. And it doesn't make sense to have a checkbox here, and then a checkbox here. We might as well simply say, set all configurations is a checkbox, and otherwise we have a checkbox you can enter names in, and if you don't enter any, it's the same as that being unchecked. So we can combine those 2 logics in the back end into basically a true or false here, which displays and allows this to be set and they can be independent. You could leave the value in here, check this to true, and this still stays there for if the user wanted to uncheck it afterwards. These I've called exclude instead of don't affect. We can always call it don't affect inside of the UI, but in the back end it makes more sense to call it exclude. So that there is all of these checkboxes handled for us. This has been replaced by a single filter. This we now have as an option as an enum. So the final thing is we need all the values for these. So we need a type, a field name, a value rule. Let's start with that. So we've got an extra here. The type is a drop down of fixed elements again. But for the back end, this could be type options and type as a string, so it's more flexible. So we could do an enum here again, but then the options is going to get more complicated for the drop down, because then we're going to have an enum that we get all the properties from. So what I'm going to do instead is just keep this as a string in the back end for the drop down. So type is going to be simply a string, and this is a field type. So this is the, doesn't say it, it just says type, but it's a field type. Now, because we're the view model at the minute, we're not the data model, this will also want the view type, or the field type rather, options. So similarly to the print view model, where we had options, so like here, for example, in the print settings profile view model, we have an observable collection of options. We're repeating this for the dropdown. The data model won't have the options, but our view model will. So we'll have an observable collection of strings, and we'll call it field type options. And again, this logic can be moved out to somewhere else. So if we see where we did paper size options, you can see we call in and we set it up from another place. So in the view model itself, that's not where we want to set the values. We want this to be filled in by another service that will be our probably application logic service for now. That'll just return the defaults. In this list, there isn't going to be a default. There's going to be these items here. So for now, I'm going to literally delete that, and there won't be any options, and this will get filled in by when we invoke this. Then we have a field name and a value rule as strings. And now if we toggle to delete, we've still got the field name, so we don't need to remake. Update, we have the type still, the field name still, the value rule still, so we just need to add a change name to. Change name to, and when we have these in the database, or even in the view model, and we select a different type and these aren't visible, the properties can just exist in the view model and not be deleted, or we can clear them out. So say we went to add and we typed in a field name, and then we changed to update, and you type something in here and you go back to add. When you go back to update, instead of losing it, it'll still be there. It just won't apply if we change the rule. So I think we'll just mimic that behavior anyway. So we have the change name to. Then in copy, we now here we have copy field, and that's still really the field name. You can see it matches this. It's just that we called it copy field. So this is actually still the backing field for this field name. So we don't need another field here called copy field. It's just a different visual on the UI. Copy from configuration we need though, and copy to field. So copy from configuration. And copy to field. Then we go to clear all, and there's no items for that. So that's now all of the view model done here. And now we need the data model in the back end. And you can see we've got rid of the data models now and moved them into the data storage data models. For that, we'll copy and paste the actions tab print data model because it's the closest one, and call this the actions tab custom properties data model. Rename this. Again, keep the ID. We have the job name and description. We got rid of the print drawing range and everything else basically. And now in here, we almost want to copy and paste all of these fields so we don't miss them. So we've got ID, job name, description, is new item, won't be in the data model. And then from here, we'll copy all the way down, paste in, delete the observable collections. And remember this time, this is where we made a mistake last time, copying and pasting. We need to change all these to properties, not leave them as members because they won't get added to the database otherwise. So we've done all that, control dot on there. Change all these to public. Get rid of the underscores and capitalize and change them to getters and setters. And then for this observable collection of options, that's not going to be stored in the database. And then the only thing left to do after we've done this now is to then implement that copy to data model. So the database now has an ID, which we wanted, the job name, description, all the values, and there's no parent relation here. These are just a list of properties. So instead of having like the print properties had, which is, and then this print profile is a child of the print job, in custom properties, they're all actually flat. So instead of this list having then stuff inside a list, and this is a child, we've just brought all that right the way up and made this element the exact list. So there is no kind of parent-child relationship for this. And when we commit this to Entity Framework as a backend, it will literally convert this to these integers. So it's going to get stored in the database as an integer, just in case you were wondering. And now in here, this to do, we can remove because we're going to do it. And we'll just update all of these now to have change name 2 equals change name 2, and so on. And that's now all of those copied over, and that builds successfully. So what do we need next? We have the Actions tab custom properties made, the same as the print data models. We haven't added them in the top level actions data model yet, which means we need to add them to this actions page view model. Similar to the print list here, we know we need a custom properties list. And this will be a custom properties view model. And then we'll do a similar thing like this print has items because it will be the default UI. So we'll say custom property list or custom properties. Let's keep it consistent. List has items. That will update that change. And then let's see if there's anywhere else in here. At a quick glance, we use the print list that we also want to use the custom properties list. So we have the selected print list item. We're going to also need that for the selected custom properties list item. So we'll copy and paste this as well. Change this. This will be the custom properties list, first or default. And now I think that's the same. So what we can do is move these now out of the way. So they stay together and these stay together. And then we can region these off because they're starting to grow. So we'll do a region for print list that has the print list. The print list has items, the selected print list. And then we can do the same now for the custom properties. Which has the custom properties list, which wants to be at the top for consistency. This needs to be the custom properties list. There we go. So we have to match up with this one, the list, then the has items, then the selected. So we have the list, then the has items, then the selected. Did we copy and paste it twice, or do we need to move this over to here? Yeah, we need to move that into there. The selected, and then the item itself. So we have the ID here. we've got the value there and the selected item. And I don't think there's any copy paste errors this time. So that one now matches the custom properties list and print list. I would just call this print, to be honest. We don't need the word list in there. And then we have printer settings, which probably wants to be in here. So now in the refresh actions page, which we're interested in, we want to have another case in here for actions custom properties. And this is where we want to fetch custom property list. And then we want to basically copy this for now. So we'll just do copy and paste. Fetch custom properties list. And then in here, fetch print settings, we don't do anymore. This will be custom properties list. Database service, we don't have yet get print list. So that'll lead us down the other rabbit hole now, which is the database service. This is where we can add now to the database. So we'll want it inside of the application database context. In here, we have the actions print tab data model. Let's copy and paste this, actions tab, custom properties. And then if we scroll down and make sure we configure, we are doing this. So there's no real configuration in the custom properties either. This is just an ID. So that's the database set up and configured. All we'd have to do is delete the database before we run this. And then we have the print list in here. We'll change that just to print. We have the get list, add, update, delete. We don't need the print settings, so we'll pretty much copy this. And again, you'll find it's basically identical. So we'll change this now to custom properties. This to custom properties data model. This to get custom properties list, which is the call we were after in the first place. And now we can do custom properties list is the context, and we can get the action custom properties to list. If it's 0, and sure we get this, we don't do that logic. We create a default. Now we're not creating a default here because we literally want it to be blank. I mean, we could. So we could potentially make something in here, but for now, we're not actually going to do that in this logic. So what I'll do is comment this out, which I don't normally like leaving comments like this. You want to normally delete them, but for now it's okay. So we'll just put a note here. We don't create defaults for now, but may in future, because we might want to add some nice getting started custom properties. But bear in mind again, this is one where it will check and always recreate them, so they're always permanently there, versus, you might want to initialize the database with some demo data, in which case we do the logic somewhere else. So it's unlikely we'll do this in here. So if there's nothing, we're not actually doing anything. So in fact, let's just remove that logic, because I don't ever plan to do that. And we can consolidate this right down, get rid of this, cut all this up here, and do that. So it's a nice inline. This will be add custom properties item, update custom properties item, delete custom properties item. And I don't think there's any special logic going in here. We just update everything with the names. That's now correct, save, correct, delete. There should be custom properties. There should be add custom property, delete, add, and then delete. We want to check we've got that. If it exists, return null. Otherwise, remove and save. So that's all of the database, I think, fully done for custom properties. So we can close that. We get all the way back to where we started, which is fetching that list, which should now work. And then instead of print list, we have custom properties list. And that will be a new observable collection of actions tab custom property view model, which is this. And then this is where technically now this is our data model to view model logic, which we probably want to move out, which we'll do at another time. Otherwise, we're going down too many rabbit holes in one go here. We order by the job name. We select a new actions tab properties view model. And then we just need to set all these up again, copy and paste in between them. And I've done something wrong because it thinks it's a data model. So, oh, we've called the wrong thing. Get custom properties list. There we go. And now we should have, there we go, the ones we need. So it's a case of just going through all of these and setting them up to match. And the remaining two properties is new item. Doesn't come from the database. It comes from the view model. So when you're pulling from the database, it can never be a new item. It's already saved. And the field type options we want to populate somewhere else. This logic now wants to be the custom properties has changed. So it's that we're changing. And it's not on that, it's on the custom properties list. Dot collection changed, we update. Same kind of logic, if we have an item, we will update the first selected item. And then we want to go through the list here. So custom properties list. We'll just call this list item. And we update the save states. That's basically saying now we fetch from the database, it needs to match what we've fetched, and it doesn't show the save button because they've been pulled from the database already. And then regarding this field options here, this is where probably after we've pulled from the database, and as we're converting to a view model, so this is kind of the view model logic, this is probably where we would handle filling and fetching those options. So for now, I'm just going to say move this logic to a service or provider, whatever we want to say, and we'll just loop for everyone. Or in fact, we could do this logic first, so we're not looping twice. And we'll say var field type options, and we could move this logic out to a helper, but I don't know where that helper is going to be yet. We haven't made that part of code. Where we start fetching things like application defaults, it will probably end up in the main app folder here as some kind of service for providing those defaults. But for now, we'll just bury it in here with a to-do, so we can always search for to-dos and handle them when we feel like. So this is just going to be a new list of strings for now. And the field types were text, number, date, and yes and no. And there's the field options. And then what we can do is, as we're creating this list, we set the field options to field options. And this wants to be an observable collection, so it will just be a new observable collection and pass in those field type options. This logic, again here, to do, move to probably, because this is a to view model, we probably want to move it into the view model where it already has the to data model. So we'll just put to do move to view model inside of, and then this one. So we'll do that at another point. See if that compiles, which it does. And let's just carry on scrolling down this actions page view model. Design time constructor, we fetch the print list. So now we probably want to fetch both. Otherwise the designer won't show the custom properties. So fetch custom properties list. Delete print settings. Now remember the settings are baked in. So it's not the inner settings. We don't have anything like that in custom properties. Delete print item we do though. Edit print settings we don't. So we probably want to group these as well because they're a bit in random order for now, these commands. So let's just group these first and then we can add the extras. If we scroll up, we started with the regions. So what we have is the constructor. So let's just do this. Constructor. I like to place the members up here. So region members, and this is preference where everybody likes to place their methods, members, constructors. You can put them in any order you want, but this is the order I've always done. Members, constructors, and then methods or functions. So this will now be another region, and we'll do actions page, and then methods in brackets. And this just helps to kind of structure our class a bit easier. Print settings, methods. And we will, I think we'll just combine, to be honest, the print and the print settings. We'll just put them in order inside. So we'll do the main print list first, and then the print settings after. This is the start of the custom properties. It's there. I'll move this design time constructor up to by the constructor, and to be honest, I'll put it inside. It's still a constructor in a sense. And now we have delete print settings. So we want the settings, remember, after the list. So that can go here. Then we have the delete print items. So that will want to go above after the fetch print items. Edit print settings. So that will go below. We'll probably put it after the fetch print settings. New print item will be here. Cancel print item, save print item. They will both be there. Settings. So those two can both be cut and put in the settings section. And then print, delete print items. That's the actual item. That can go here. And then finally, we have inject printed details, which is not the settings or the normal. So you can go at the very bottom. That will now group all of them in a nice drop down like this. And it's easier to see when we scroll through now what we might want with the custom properties. So we have the fetch custom properties. And then in here, we have a new item, a cancel item, and a delete item, and a save. So we probably want all of those same methods for ours. We won't want any of the other things. So if we then copy and paste these, there should be the final amount of all the functions we need to be able to just do the UI and bind everything in one go instead of coming back. So let's just rename these now. Add new custom properties. Now this is where technically it would be custom property, or we'll do custom properties item. And the thing is, we did print item, but we did print list, print item. Yeah, so we put item at the end of the name, so we'll do that here. New item, cancel custom properties item, delete custom properties item from UI, save custom properties item. Let's work through these one at a time. So this will be, instead of print settings, this will be custom property. Actually, we don't even need that, so that can go. Which is a custom properties view model. And we don't need the ID. This is a new custom properties. New custom property job, we'll call this. Here's a new item. Custom properties list. Add the new item. Selected. Custom properties list ID is the same. That's that done. Cancel. So we have, if the selected custom properties list item is null, return. Otherwise, it's new. Then we want to delete the old one. And it will be the ID. Restore state, so that's all done. Then we have the delete. So we have custom properties list. And you can see this is literally so far just complete copy and paste of the logic of the print list because it's pretty much all the same. So at some point, you might be able to simplify all these calls into single calls. This will get the index 1, delete custom properties item. Are you sure you want to delete? And then the custom properties list, job name. We don't need this temporary copy and pasted code here now. Show the dialog. If we confirm return, otherwise, custom properties list remove. That's that one done. And finally, the save custom properties. So if the selected, is it ID? No, the actual selected custom properties item is null return. Otherwise, it's a new item. We add custom property item, or we update custom property item. This will be the item here. And the selected print list item is all done there. So now, do we not have a to data model, which will be the last thing we need to do? And to data model, we've returned the wrong thing. View model, that needs to be data model. And then that all matches because they all match in anyway. And that's the error gone. There we go. So now we all compile. We're ready to bind to the view. What we need to do is just delete the database and then restart the application. And I presume this will at least create that in the database. So we go to the desktop, bin, debug, .NET 10, go to the settings, close down Rider, delete the settings, and then reopen Rider. And when we run the application, it's made the database for us. And if we go to custom properties, that tab still works even though it's not bound. And if we take a look in the SQLite Explorer, you can see we have this new table and we have all of those fields, but obviously nothing in there because we haven't made it. So that's all of the database side done. And all we need to do now is bind it to the actual view. So that's got everything we need in one go. Instead of bouncing back and forward between making all the calls and partially doing the view, I figured it was better to, we've got the boilerplate for the view ready now, but we can go ahead and bind all of this and make the UI real from the start because we now already have all of the backend database ready to go. I think that's a better way of doing it than starting to make the UI, binding to fake data, then changing it later.